Hey guys, in today's video, we are going to look at some of the causes of the Second World War. And World War II was a large international conflict from 1939 until 1945. We'll be spending the next couple of weeks diving into it. In today's video, we're going to focus on four main topics. We're going to look at how the rise of dictatorship contributed to the Second World War. Then we'll get into the expansion of Germany leading up to Adolf Hitler's invasion of Poland, which starts the whole conflict. And then we'll finish up defining both sides of this war. Who are the allies? Who are the Axis powers? Where do they exist on our globe? It might surprise you to learn that one of the causes of the Second World War is actually about money, specifically the Great Depression. Now, the Great Depression is going to be an event that affects not just the United States, but the entire world. And we are all feeling the lack of money. This depression is affecting lots of people. And when people don't have money, their government is weakened, right? So people in places like Germany and Italy and Japan are seeing that their current government is not doing enough to give them financial security. And so they vote for somebody else. And those somebody else's were dictators, which came to power in these places. A dictator is a leader who rules their country with total power. They have all of the control, and usually they use force and aggression to make their bidding happen. So think of the hand here using their power to pull the strings and manipulate people in this society. At the start of World War II, there are four dictators that come to power in four key countries. And of course, you'll be familiar with Adolf Hitler, who comes to power in Nazi Germany. You might also know the name Joseph Stalin, comes to power in Russia. And there's also Tojo of Japan. And finally, Benito Mussolini. I'm going to back that up. That doesn't even look like S's. Oh, I made it worse. This is why I don't write it on the board at school, but hopefully that's somewhat legible. Those are our four dictators that come to power in these key countries. We have Hitler, Stalin, Tojo, and Mussolini, and we'll be reading more about them in our Pear Deck activity this week. All right, so Adolf Hitler comes to power in Germany. The German people are dealing with the effects of the Great Depression, and they look to Hitler as somebody who can restore Germany to its former glory. And so he takes power and he makes a couple key promises. He promises, first off, to expand the German Empire, to acquire more land. And so he starts to chip away at the areas nearby. He looks at Austria and ends up annexing Austria, a fancy word for basically adding it to the German state. And then he demands what's called the Sudetenland, which is a part of Czechoslovakia. And so if you're looking at my map here, you see this sort of maroon color on the map here. That is the Sudetenland, and you can see it is quite close to the German borders. And he basically threatens that if he does not get the Sudetenland, then he's going to start a war. So global leaders have a huge decision to make now. On one hand, they can give Hitler the Sudetenland and hope that it's stops war from happening, or they can draw a line in the sand and say, no, absolutely not. You can't just take something that's not yours. And the leaders in Great Britain and France agree to ultimately give Hitler the Sudetenland with a promise. They said, you can have this piece of land, but you have to promise Hitler not to take any more. And you might be able to guess where we're going with this. Now, what Great Britain and France did, I'm going to throw a fancy word at you, and that word is appeasement. To appease somebody is basically like giving in. To give somebody what they want in hopes that they kind of calm down and chill out. So that was the strategy. Let's appease Hitler. And let's hope that that stops war from happening. There is a cartoon on the left that I think is a really cool visual representation. I don't know if it's in German or what language this is, but I know that I can't read what's on the sign here or on this, what I'm assuming is a piece of meat. But even just visually, we can kind of see what I just talked about. We have this dog or this wolf, which we know represents Hitler. We know this because there's a symbol here and the hat, which if you've ever seen like World War II type movies, you'll certainly recognize as belonging to the Nazi Party. And we've got the fancy folks here, the Great Britain and France, offering up Hitler. Looks like this piece of meat that kind of just says, "Here, take this, and then leave us alone." And you might notice there's the United States in the background, just sort of watching and not getting involved, which is quite accurate to what we were doing at the time. And I'll get into that in just a few minutes. And so this strategy of appeasement was a massive failure. When Hitler saw Britain and France just give him the Sudetenland, he viewed this as an action of weakness and said, basically, they're just going to give me stuff. I'm going to keep on taking. And his next step was to invade Poland nearby. And that is what officially begins the Second World War in 1939. So World War II obviously includes many countries. That's why it's a world war and not just a small regional conflict. And so there are two sides fighting this war, the Allies and the Axis. I'm going to go ahead and show you where everybody exists now. We're gonna start with the Allies, the side supported by the United States. So of course we have the United States here. We also have Great Britain. I'm gonna make my pen a little bit smaller, kind of smush Great Britain there. We also have France nearby, and the big guy, the Soviet Union. Doing a beautiful job coloring. But y'all get the idea. We also have, of course, the Axis powers. These are the bad guys, right? We've got the Nazi German Empire right here. We also have Japan, and we have Italy, the boot. So I know it's a beautiful job, but that kind of shows you where everybody is and who the two sides who are fighting this war. So I've talked a lot about Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany and a bit about Great Britain and France, but I haven't mentioned the United States too much. And that's because when we ask ourselves this question of what were we up to at the start of World War II, well, the answer is pretty much nothing. We weren't doing a whole lot, and that's because at the time, our policy is called isolationism. If you think of the word isolated, you're kind of alone, you're by yourself. And that's exactly what we were doing. We were staying neutral. We were keeping out of conflict. We wanted no part of this war. And that's going to continue for a while until we get to a future video where we talk about what that event was that started to change our mind and realized we needed to be involved in this conflict. That is it for today's video. We're going to reflect on what we just learned and listened by writing a quick 1 to 2 sentence summary of this video to help us process what we just learned today. Please do that in Edpuzzle, and I'll see you guys next time.